We've made it to pretty much the halfway point here in season number 2 of the San Francisco Giants franchise on MLB The Show 24. And after a really strong first 2 months of the year, it seems like the Giants have fallen back down to earth a little bit with a slow start in June. And that started with a 4-game sweep on the road against the Miami Marlins, who are obviously not the best of teams. We went 3-8 in this 11-game stretch against the Marlins, Padres, and Dodgers, but we did rebound, taking 2 against both Houston and Minnesota, who are 2 of the better teams in the American League. So we've got a little bit of momentum here as we look to wrap up the month of June in solid fashion. Currently 38-34 puts us 3rd in the division and only half a game out of a wild card spot. Although we're tied with both the Brewers and the Phillies, we've got a 3-game set in Philadelphia coming up, which could prove to be an important one. Here's a look at the numbers for everybody, roughly 70 games into the season. Now, of course, we have dealt with our fair share of injuries recently. Marco Luciano's banged up. Jung-Hoo Lee is on the injured list. And, of course, the big one at the end of last episode is Kyle Harrison breaking his hand, and he is now on the 60-day IL. And it's unfortunate because it seems like Harrison was finally trending in the right direction. He was having a pretty good season. And the obvious replacement for him would be Keaton Winn, but he's hurt for another month or so. So ultimately, we decided to sort of go big or go home with Carson Wizenhunt, who's going to be able to make around 5 or 6 starts in the rotation until Keaton Winn is healthy. And from there, we'll be able to evaluate and figure out who we would like to have stick in the rotation. We're also going to talk more about the draft class today. Of course, in the last episode, we went over some of these top guys who could be in play for our number 4 overall pick. And today, we're going to look at all of the pitchers in the class, but that'll be a little bit later. Let's start with Carson Wizenhunt, the young 24-year-old lefty making his big league debut. Wizenhunt is the 11th ranked prospect in our farm system, so he's a pretty big deal. He had his first look at big league action in spring training, did not perform very well, but he has been good in AAA this season, albeit in only 5 starts because he's been hurt for much of the year. This series against the Phillies is going to be a pivotal one because they're pretty much even with us in the standings at 37 and 33. Not to mention, we're on the road as well, so it's going to be a challenge. We're obviously going to play Wizenhunt's debut. That is the second matchup. Jung-Hoo Lee is off the injured list, so he will be available for this series, which is certainly good news. And Elliot Ramos will be sent down to AAA. Ramos has been solid in 50 at-bats, but right now he's kind of our 27th man. He's up in case of injury, but right now we're in a good spot with health. We unfortunately lost the first game of the series 4-2 with a strong start from the ace, Zach Wheeler. And that'll bring us here into the second game. The Phillies now a game and a half ahead of us because they won on our off day. And then obviously they beat us. So we've got a little work to do if we want to catch up in the standings. And of course, we'll be taking a look at Carson Wizenhunt making his first big league appearance here on the road at Citizens Bank Park in the city of brotherly love. As I mentioned earlier, Wizenhunt is the 11th ranked prospect in the organization. I believe he is the 3rd ranked pitcher in the system. So there's some real optimism with Wizenhunt that he could be a long-term starter for us. And lucky for him, he won't have to face off against the Phillies at full strength. Bryce Harper's getting a day off, and Brandon Marsh, who's top 5 in all of baseball and WAR, broke his leg in the first game of the series. So the Phillies are not going to have him available today or for the next month or two, which is obviously a big deal considering how good he's been. The game did not give us a graphic for their starting pitcher, but it is the lefty Ranger Suarez who's been pretty productive this season with an ERA in the mid-5s. Jung-Hoo Lee gets that one by the glove of Bohm for a leadoff single. Good to see Jung-Hoo Lee healthy. Of course, he has somehow been even better statistically than he was last season. The only player in the National League with a higher average than him right now is, unironically, Brandon Marsh, who, of course, is going to be hurt for a while. That'll bring up J.P. Crawford, drafted by the Phillies a number of years ago, and he strikes out on the sinker. Good pitch there by Suarez for his first strikeout of the game. Max Kepler now, another lefty-on-lefty matchup. Kepler hitting .233 as he goes down looking again on the sinker. And we travel to the bottom of the first, taking a look at Carson Wizenhunt, the 24-year-old lefty, 4-pitch repertoire, former East Carolina Pirate. And we'll see what the 11th ranked prospect in the Giants system can do in his first big league game as he starts with the center fielder, Johan Rojas, who lines it to short, and Jonathan India makes the play, and that is a successful first at bat for Wizenhunt. Now against Alec Bohm, the 2-2, and Bohm goes down looking on the changeup. First career punch-out for Carson Wizenhunt, and we'll see if he can retire the side 1-2-3. Facing off against the shortstop, Trey Turner. He's behind 1-2, and he chases the low curveball. Great pitch by Carson Wizenhunt, who goes 1-2-3 in his first career inning, striking out a pair. And we have no score moving into the second inning. We'll see if either team can put themselves on the board. With one away, it's the catcher, Patrick Bailey, who launches this ball into left field. That one is no doubt out of here as he tosses the bat, and San Francisco strikes first. It's 1-0. Bailey with his third home run of the season. Of course, Bailey getting the start today, being that Ranger Suarez is a lefty, and he's taking advantage of his opportunity. That'll bring up Jonathan India with a liner into left field. It's got some carry. At the track, at the wall, it is gone! Another home run for the Giants. This time it's Jonathan India, his 8th of the year, and it is now a 2-0 ball game. That's India's first homer since the walk-off against the Astros in the last episode, which of course has been one of the highlights of our season and really the whole series up to this point. Austin Slater now rips this one into the gap. That'll go for extra bases. Slate the Great will make it to second with a 2-out double. That was a 14-pitch at bat to Austin Slater, who really made Ranger Suarez work, and he ends up winning the long-awaited battle with an extra base hit. And that'll bring up Jung-Hoo Lee, one of the best pure hitters in all of baseball, and he sends this one into left. An opposite field home run for Jung-Hoo Lee. And the Giants double their lead. It's 4-0 with 3 long balls here in the second inning. That's Lee's 11th home run of the season. He's really added a power element to his game, as good as he was last year, hitting .350 with a WAR above 7. He's found a way to get better this year, and that's because he's added power to his game. He only hit 12 home runs last year. This season, he's already hit 11. And keep in mind, he's missed around a quarter of the season with nagging injuries. So he hasn't even played a full slate, yet he's going to match and pass his home run total from last year before the All-Star game. J.P. Crawford pops it up into the shallow infield. It'll be caught by Turner, and that'll wrap up a disastrous second inning for Ranger Suarez, allowing a trio of homers to Bailey, India, and Lee. Wizenhunt already has some run support as we go bottom 2. Christian Walker, the hometown kid, pops it into left, and Soler should be under it to make the play. I've gotten some questions as to why Jorge Soler is not the DH, and believe me, I don't want him in the outfield either because he's not a good defensive player, but with injuries and whatnot, somebody has to play there, and it is him. Speaking of Soler, he takes this ball a long way into left. A solo home run, and that'll make it 5-0. Some Soler power here early in the third, his 19th home run of the year, and Ranger Suarez has already allowed 4 home runs today. You should find some Philadelphian Italian restaurant for Ranger Suarez to work in because he's serving some nice spaghetti with a lot of meatballs tonight. That pitch was right down the middle, off speed. No wonder Jorge Soler crushed it. That's about as easy of a home run as he'll get. David Villar grounded to short. Turner bobbles it. Throw to first is not in time. An E6 for Trey Turner. And this game gets from bad to worse for the Phillies, who have already started off in a disastrous way. Patrick Bailey strikes out on the fastball. Good rebound by Suarez, and he'll get through the rest of the third, only having allowed the home run by Soler as we move into the bottom of the third. Kenneth Smith-Njigba making his season and Phillies debut, and he's off to a good start. 1 for 1, rips it into left for a double. The first base runner that Carson Wizenhunt has allowed today. And Jackson Smith-Njigba's younger brother is aboard in scoring position. We'll see if the Phillies can drive him in. Johan Rojas up with 2 away, the 2-2. This one is hit well into center. Lee chases after it, and he will make the play near the warning track. Through 3 innings, Carson Wizenhunt looks like the real deal. He's allowed just 1 base runner and no runs so far. Wizenhunt has arguably been overshadowed by the start from the San Francisco offense, though, with 4 long balls through just 3 innings. Suarez still in the game as he walks Jonathan India. Gotta wonder when the Phillies are going to make a pitching change because it has just been a rough day in the office for Ranger Suarez. Austin Slater now 3-2, puts it on the ground. This could be 2. What a play by Turner to second, over to first. That was a barehanded throw as well from Rodolfo Castro at second base to help turn the double play. Jung-Hoo Lee now 2 for 2, looking for a third hit, and he will not get it with a grounder over to Rodolfo Castro. And that'll do it for Ranger Suarez. Certainly not his best day. 4 innings, having allowed 5. As we go bottom 4, Alec Bohm with a blooper to start the inning. It goes right into no man's land out and right. And that is a leadoff single as Kepler misfires on the throw. Won't matter. But the Phillies do lead off the inning with a base runner. Could this be the start to their rally? Castellanos swings and misses at the fastball. Good pitch by Wizenhunt. Now facing off against the catcher, JT Realmuto. The 1-2. And Realmuto crushes this one into left. That one goes off the wall. Lee chases after it quickly. Bohm looks to score. The throw from India is going to be close. And he is not in time. That was a close play. The Giants relayed that one about as well as they could have. But it's an RBI double for Realmuto, and the Phillies are now on the board. Christian Walker lines it into right. Kepler will make the play. Carson Wizenhunt allows his first career run, but nothing more as it's 5-1 going into the 5th. Mick Abel, the former first-round pick out of Oregon State, I believe, is into the game here for Philadelphia. 7.13 ERA, not having a very good season, as he faces off against J.P. Crawford, who sends this ball high and deep into center. Rojas at the track at the wall. It is off the wall. Rojas misplays it. Crawford looks to make it to second. He slides safely with a leadoff double. J.P. Crawford is likely to make the All-Star game this year. That's how good he's been, and he absolutely deserves it. Other than Jung-Hoo Lee, he's been the best player on the team. Max Kepler with a liner into right, and that one is gone. Only a 12-degree launch angle, but Kepler hit the ball so hard that it makes it over the fence. And it certainly helps that we're playing at a hitters-friendly park. If this was Oracle with the tall right field wall, Lord knows that's not only staying in the park, but probably a single. So Kepler goes deep, and it's now 7-1, a 5th home run today for San Francisco. That'll bring up Jorge Soler, one of the 5 Giants to have gone deep so far. He draws a walk. Another early base runner. That'll bring up David Villar, who, of course, got the start because Ranger Suarez, a lefty, pitched. Now facing off against a righty, not his strong suit, and he does strike out. That'll bring up the second baseman, Thairo Estrada. He's been quiet so far, 0 for 2. He will line this one up the middle, gets by Castro for a base hit. Soler looks to make it to third. He'll be safe. Close play. Throw is a little bit off the mark, though, from Rojas. And so now there's runners on the corners and a big opportunity for the 8-hole hitter, Jonathan India, who's off to a good start, having reached base twice, and he goes down looking on the slider. The Giants add 2 more runs, though, with the homer by Kepler, as it's 7-1 going into the bottom of the 5th. Carson Wizenhunt still in the game, still looking strong as he strikes out Cannon Smith and Jigba on the changeup. Rodolfo Castro now the 1-2, grounded to second for a hit. Along with Bryce Harper and Brandon Marsh, there's also no Bryson Stott, with him getting the day off and Castro getting the start. The Killer Bees all not in the lineup for the Phillies as Johan Rojas singles into center. And all of a sudden, Philadelphia is starting to get business booming. 2 runners on, 2 outs. Huge at bat for Alec Bohm. And he's going to pop it into right. Could be a close play. Kepler charges after it, and he'll make the play. 5 innings of 1-run ball for Carson Wizenhunt. I'm not sure if the Giants really need to keep him in because they've got a good lead, but maybe they'll look for one more inning. Into the 6th now, Jung-Hoo Lee draws a walk. Another appearance on base for Lee, whose average after the 2 hits currently sits at 355, which again is even higher than he hit last year, 352, which was good enough to win the NL batting title. Max Kepler launches this one into right. Unlike the last inning, this one is a no-doubter for Kepler. His 2nd home run in the game, 2nd in as many innings, and it's now 9-1, San Francisco. Number 14 on the year for Max. San Francisco has now gone deep 6 separate times today through just 6 innings. The power has been alive and well, and it hasn't mattered who's pitched. Whether it's been Suarez or Abel, the bats have been awake and mashing. So now Spencer Turnbull will come into the game for Philadelphia. 3.34 ERA. Not a good appearance out of the bullpen for Abel. And we'll see if Turnbull, the former Tiger, is able to get out of the inning here against Jorge Soler. He grounds this one over to third. Bohm makes the play. Another successful inning, though, for the Giants. Their 2nd straight inning with a 2-run shot for Max Kepler. Into the bottom of the 6th, Wizenhunt remains in the game as he strikes out Trey Turner for a second time today. Turner chases the low changeup. That'll go for out number 1. Nick Castellanos now, the 2-2. And he goes down looking. This time on the fastball. Another strikeout for Carson Wizenhunt. We'll see if he can strike out this side against the multiple-time All-Star catcher, JT Realmuto. And he lines it to first. It's caught by Kepler, who's moved over to the infield as a defensive substitution. And that'll likely do it for the big league debut of Carson Wizenhunt. And what a great outing. 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, 5 hits, no walks, and only 1 run let up. Certainly a good first impression for Wizenhunt as we move into the 7th. Blake Sabol comes in off the bench, and he crushes it into right field. That one is long gone as the Giants go deep for a 7th time tonight. 6th home run on the year for Blake Sabol, making a play here off the bench. And it is now a 10-1 ball game, an utter blowout here in Citizens Bank Park. And because of that, we're going to look to move through the rest of this game quicker, bearing a Phillies comeback. So Forrest Whitley's going to come in to pitch here for San Francisco, and ideally he'll make it through the final 3 innings. Whitley's pitched 29 innings so far this year. Hasn't been all that good with an ERA at 6.21, but I feel like his other numbers are better than the ERA total. As Edmundo Sosa pops it into center. Boink! Off of his glove, Jun-Hoo Lee goes for the highlight grab, and unfortunately it does not work, as that'll be a double for Edmundo Sosa, his 9th of the year. We'll see if Cannon Smith-Njigba can bring him in. He does not, goes down on the strikeout. Let's move into the top of the 8th inning now. Jun-Hoo Lee looking to reach base for a 4th time today, and he will do just that. Another hit for Lee, continuing his spectacular season. Jun-Hoo Lee needs more MVP love. There are a few guys in the NL playing better than him, but he needs to be on the top 3. As J.P. Crawford launches it into right. Another home run for the Giants. Their 8th of the game, and it is now 12-1. I feel like in the games that I play at Oracle, I can barely hit home runs with this team. And once you put them in hitters-friendly parks like Coors and Citizens Bank Park, they do stuff like this. So now Colby Allard is going to come out of the bullpen as Spencer Turnbull, like his predecessors, did not have a good day on the mound. Max Kepler has gone deep in each of his last 2 at-bats, and he will ultimately line this one into right. And that one is going to drop for another hit, his 3rd of the game, and the hits are just going to keep on coming. Pause, no ditty. For the Giants, and we'll see if San Francisco can bring him in. That'll bring up Jorge Soler, 1 for 3 with a homer and a walk, and he goes down on the fastball. Allard would make it through the 8th. He would also make it through the 9th. We're going to move to the bottom of the 9th now. Runner on first, 2 away for Cannon Smith-Njigba, looking to keep the game alive as he sends it into the right center gap. Lee chases after it, but the run will score. And the Phillies cut the lead all the way down to 10, as it's now 12-2. Put your rally caps on, kids. We could be sensing a comeback. Rodolfo Castro grounds it to short. Jonathan India makes the play. Throw to first is a close one, but in time. And the Giants win it in blowout fashion by the final score of 12-2. What a showing from San Francisco. Obviously, the most noteworthy thing about this game is the fact that we hit 8 home runs. Lee, Sabol, Bailey, India, Soler, Crawford, and 2 for Max Kepler. Along with that, we had a great performance on the mound from Carson Wizenhunt in his first big league game, going 6 innings, only allowing 1 run, and getting the easy win. The top of the order led the way in terms of production. 3 hits, home run, 2 RBIs for Lee, 2 for 5, home run for Crawford, 3 for 4, 4 RBIs, and 2 home runs for Kepler. All of our run production came off of home runs today, interestingly enough, and then again, Carson Wizenhunt and Forrest Whitley both performed quite well. Rough day in the office for the Phillies. They didn't hit the ball well, but that was the least of their concerns. Suarez allowed, I think, 4 home runs. Abel allowed 2, and Turnbull allowed 2. It was certainly not those guys' night, as the Giants tied the series up at 1, again doing it in dominant fashion. and we'll see if we can win the series and look to garner some momentum after that great offensive performance. We're going to simulate through the rest of June, and after the series against the Phillies, we're going to stay on the East Coast with 3 games against the Mets, who are kind of in the wild card race, but not really. If the Mets perform well against us, maybe they can get something going. And then we play the Royals and the Angels, who are both as well towards the middle of the standings in the American League. So we ended up winning the last game against Philadelphia, so we win that series, which is pretty cool. And that brings us into the first of this 3-game set in Queens against the Mets. We're down by 2 here in the bottom of the 9th with 2 away, and dear God, the bases are loaded. As India goes down looking on the slider, Scott Barlow finished things off, and the Mets win it by the score of 4-2, and they take Game 1 against San Francisco. Let's hop into Game 2 now. A 13-game hitting streak on the line for Jung-Hoo Lee here in the top of the 8th. Not to mention, this is a pretty big situation, being that we're down by 1. Edwin Diaz is on the mound. He is no longer the Mets closer, and that's because he's not very good this year. His ERA is in the 6s. Grounded to short. Lindor makes the throw, and it looks like the hitting streak is over for Jung-Hoo Lee. Well, not so fast. Let's move into the 9th. Tied at 3 with an RBI double by J.P. Crawford. And so now Crawford is at second, and Lee can look to be the hero. The 1-1, this one is hit nicely. The second baseman will not make the play. Jung-Hoo Lee is safe at first with an infield single. The hit streak stays alive. And now there's runners on the corners, and we're going to stay in the game here because it's a huge at-bat for Jorge Soler. With Crawford at third, Lee at first in a tie game, we'll see if Soler can look to put San Francisco ahead against the new pitcher, Max Kranick. Soler is down 0-2 early, and he goes down looking on the fastball and does not seem to like the call. Let's travel now into the bottom of the 9th inning. Francisco Alvarez is at second, Mark Vientos is at first, and Drew Gilbert has a chance to be the hero. Landon Roop is on the mound. I don't see why we wouldn't bring one of our back-end guys now, and it will be Camilo Duvall. Not a save situation, but we'll see if Duvall can get us out of the jam. Duvall is 17 for 17 in save opportunities this year, but has an ERA in the 4s. It's been a weird year for him as he strikes out the talented outfielder Drew Gilbert on the slider. Now can Duvall get out of the inning alive against Kevin Smith? First pitch of the at-bat. Smith grounds it past the diving glove of Gallo for a base hit. Runner looks to score. The throw from Kepler is just barely not in time, and the Mets walk it off with an RBI single by Kevin Smith to win it. 4-3 your final. The New York Mets would not only take this game here against the Giants, but they would also take the last one, sweeping San Francisco, which is certainly not ideal. Let's hop into the first now of this Royals series. 15-game hitting streak on the line now for Jung-Hoo Lee. The game itself looks like a lost cause. We trail 6-1. Lee has the Giants down to their final out, and he does single into left. So again, the hit streak survives. It's up to 16 now for Jung-Hoo Lee, who had a hit streak as high as 20 a season ago. Don't really see a realistic pathway, though, for the Giants to come back and win here. And sure enough, the Royals would get the out on the following at bat. They win it 6-1. So the Giants have lost 4 in a row after our offensive outpour against Philadelphia, as we get a trade offer here from the division rival Diamondbacks, who are pretty much right in the thick of things in the wild card race like us, as they are looking to swap comparable prospects A.J. Vukovich for Walker Martin. I don't really see a reason to do this, so I think for now we are going to pass. After losing the first game against Kansas City, we would end up winning the next 2, so that's cool. That brings us into the series here against the Angels. We're up 3-1. The Angels have loaded the bases here with 2 away in the top of the 8th for second baseman Luis Rengifo, who looks to be the hero, with Cade Marlowe and Joe Adell both in scoring position, and Logan O'Hoppe at first being the potential go-ahead runner. Can Jose Leclerc look to get San Francisco out of the inning unharmed? The count is 1-2 for Rengifo, and he lines it past the glove of Kepler. 1 run will score. Adell, the speedster, is safe at home. 2-run single for Luis Rengifo, and the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim tied at 3. Can Zach Neto put them ahead? It does not look like it. Pops it into left, at the track actually, but it is caught by Jorge Soler. Successful inning, though, for the Angels. They scored 2. Why can't we do that with the bases loaded? Will we get an opportunity to win the game, possibly? Yes, we do. Bottom 9. Tie game, still knotted up at 3 with Estrada and Lee on base. And Jorge Soler, who's 2 for 3 with a home run today, up to the plate, facing off against the righty, Carlos Estevez. Soler finds himself behind early 0-2, and he goes down looking on the low fastball. That's the same placement that we just saw in the last series against the Mets. Can Jonathan India walk us off again? He rips it up the middle. That'll go for a base hit. Estrada looks to score. The throw to the plate is offline. A walk-off for the Giants. It's Jonathan India once again who brings in the winning run off of a single. And San Francisco wins their 3rd consecutive game here by the score of 4-3. We ended up splitting the last 2 games against the Angels in very different fashion, losing 10-7, and then winning the second one 1-0. So we ended up being decent during this 12-game stretch, finishing with a record of 6-6. In our 1-0 win, it was Carson Wizenhunt on the mound who went 8 2/3 scoreless, unable to finish off the job, but still nearly a complete game shutout. His second start wasn't as successful, a loss against the Royals, in which he allowed 4 runs in 4 innings. But overall, Carson Wizenhunt is passing the eye test. He's had 2 really good starts up to this point, and if he continues to play well, he may stay on the rotation once Keaton Winn comes back, which should be pretty soon. I think Wizenhunt's going to have 2 or 3 more starts before we're fully able to evaluate. So with that, we're now 44-40, not really making up any ground in the wild card race, but at least we didn't have a bad episode today like we did last time around, as we're now the second team out and a game back. So we fell behind a little bit, but really not much has changed in that regard. Before we wrap things up, let's take a look at the draft class. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about some of the pitchers in this year's class. And of course, as you guys probably know, my philosophy is not to draft pitchers early because I feel like it's easier to find good ones later. And that's especially the case this year with all the good position players at the top of this draft. And I think we can really find pitchers down the board. It's a super deep class in terms of pitching talent. And as I've mentioned over the last couple of episodes, I think this draft class as a whole is legitimately special. Whatever the 2003 NBA draft did to basketball and the 1984 draft did to the NFL, that's what this class has a chance to be for the MLB. I mean, it is unbelievably special in terms of top-end talent and in terms of depth. I'm not going to go over these first-round pitchers because, well, we're not going to pick any of them. We're going to pick a position player at 4. It's just a matter if we pick one of those top prospects or somebody else. These guys in the range of round 2 is more who we're going to be looking at, and that starts with Colt Gorman, a 6'3" right-hander hailing from Tennessee. Gorman is a projected fringe first-round guy. I don't think he's going to fall to our second-rounder, 44 overall, but it is certainly possible. He's got a well-rounded skill set and a 5-pitch repertoire topping at 97 miles an hour. David Campos is a player who our scouts really like. They view him as a top 10 player in the class, and if he does fall to our second-round pick, I think the Cuban righty certainly would be towards the top of the list in terms of players we would look to consider. He has really good control, he keeps the ball in the ballpark, and he really doesn't have any major weaknesses. Campos has a 4-pitch repertoire topping out at 96. He's a little bit small, 5'11", 206, but I don't think that's going to be too big of an issue for him. Justin Barton is a player who our scouts like even more. They view him as the 6th-ranked player in the class and arguably the best pitcher of this year's entire crop. The Canadian righty is a guy who I think could be really good. Walks per 9 is his best attribute, and as you guys know, that's a big deal for me. Walks per 9, I think, is one of the most important stats for pitchers in this game. He's got an absolutely filthy breaking ball and a 5-pitch mix, topping out at 97. I'm not entirely convinced any of those guys will fall to us in the second round. I think it's more likely we could be looking at one of these guys, and that starts with 18-year-old righty Robbie Lester. Lester's another guy who I feel like is really solid. He's got good control, he's steady, he's reliable. I'm not entirely sure if he's ever going to be an ace, but I think he could be a really good 2 or 3 in a rotation if he hits his ceiling. He throws gas, I will say, a 5-pitch mix topping out at 99. Warner Green, a 20-year-old righty playing JUCO in Pennsylvania, is a guy who I think could be pretty solid. Green has improved in each of his 2 seasons at his JUCO, and I think he's got one of the higher floors of all these pitchers in the class. In terms of the guys who we're going to be interested in, most of them are 18 years old. Green is 20. He's a little bit farther along. He's got a 4-pitch mix topping out at 97. Let's go deeper down the board a little bit farther. Brandon Crook, the 21-year-old from Michigan State, is another guy who I think has a really high floor, but has just as much upside as some of these 18-year-olds. Crook has been one of the best pitchers in the Big Ten this year, and I think he would be absolutely good value for us in the second round. He's got a 5-pitch mix topping out at 96. We scouted him a little bit farther than some of these other guys, being that he's a little bit older, and I think he could be quite good. Avi Park is someone who I think has loads of potential. I think he's a lot more raw than even some of these other 18-year-olds, but the native of Rhode Island is somebody who could be really good. He keeps the ball in the ballpark. He's got good control. He allows a few too many hits, and he doesn't throw super hard. A 4-pitch mix topping out at around 94. I'm curious to see if his velo is able to get to another gear once he makes it to the big leagues. Let's look at some deep sleepers in this class, guys who could be available in the third round or later. This is how we found Scott Rios last year, who's now the #1 pitching prospect in all of baseball. Some names to watch out for include Jesus Rodriguez. He's 22 years old, but he's going to have a high potential rating. Rodney Bravo looks really good, but he failed his physical. The medical is what's going to push him down the board, but he could be intriguing value for us, say, in the third round. Another name to watch out for is the lefty Alejandro Reyes. Not a lot of good lefties in this class, but I think both Bravo and Reyes could be intriguing players. Reyes is raw, but has some really nice potential. And then guys who are not ranked in the top 100. Noah Talley and Michael Kelly are two names to watch. But I think the big wild card is Claudio Gonzalez, a 21-year-old righty. He's probably going to have a potential, but he's really raw for his age, which is going to raise some question marks. But the upside with him is certainly there, and he could be really, really good and has gone mostly undetected by teams in this class. In terms of relievers, I don't really scout relief pitchers. There were a few guys I was intrigued by late last year in the process, including Fernando Molina, who of course we ended up drafting in the third round. I took a skim at some of these guys, and none of their skill sets really intrigued me all that much. So bearing some great value, I don't think we're going to use any picks really on a reliever. In terms of the closers, there are some of the best players in this class here, such as Jaime Sanchez, Chaz Gordon, Rolando Bautista, but there's really no depth. 6 or 7 guys are ranked in the top 20, and then after that, there is a major drop-off. I am intrigued by Clemente Valera. He's a guy who's not really ranked, but has high potential. Could be an option for us in the 5th or 6th round. So that's the pitching class. A lot of really good players. I think we're going to hopefully end up with 2 or 3 of these guys. Our pitching rotation for the future looks really solid. We've got our long-term ace, hopefully, with Scott Rios, and hopefully we can add some more middle-of-the-rotation arms in the draft. Next time around, we're going to go over the position players, and there are some elite guys at the top who we'll be considering at pick 4, but it's a really deep group in terms of the position players as well. As I said, this class is loaded with talent across the board. In the next episode, we're going to make it to the draft. We've got 4 series against Colorado, the Dodgers, the Nationals, and the Rays. That'll lead us up to the draft, which will be in the following episode. And then after that, the All-Star break. And before we know it, the trade deadline. Hope everybody enjoyed the episode. Let me know what pitchers you like down below in the comments. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.